Yo, what's going on guys, it's Zypher here. In today's video I'll be starting a new series on how to make a Roblox ESP script. This will cover all of the basics and it will be a complete finished project by the end of the series. It will have boxes, healths, name, distance, weapon, a basic ESP script. I will show you how to write it, how to add more features, and yeah, so let's just get right into it. So to follow this tutorial, we're going to need three things. We're going to need an executor, like Potassium, for example. We're going to need an IDE, like Visual Studio, for example. And we're going to need the latest version of Roblox installed. Once you have these three things, you can go ahead and get started. Alright guys, now that we're in Visual Studio, we're going to go ahead and define some variables. So we're going to start by doing local run service equals game : get service run service. We're just going to go down a couple lines and define the player service. We're going to do local player, player visuals, player service equals game : get service players. Next, we're going to define the local player. We're going to do local player equals player service dot local player. Next, we're going to define the characters. We're going to do local character equals local player dot character, or local player dot character added : weight. Next, we're going to do the humanoids. We're going to do local humanoid, not humanoid root part, humanoid equals character : weight for child humanoid. Next, we're going to do local humanoid root part, local humanoid root part equals character : weight for child humanoid root part. Alright, next we're going to define our camera. So we're going to do local camera equals workspace dot current camera. Now that we have our variables, we're going to go ahead and define a function called ESP. This is where we'll do all of our drawing, our updating, and our sizing, and all of that good stuff. So we're going to do local function ESP. We're going to do player, go down, end. Now we're going to define our ESP connection. You don't really have to know what this means. I'll explain it later on. So we're just going to do local ESP connection, semicolon. Next, we're going to find our drawings. So we're going to do local drawings equals a table. Then we're going to do box equals drawing dot new square. Then we're going to do a comma. We're going to go down. We're going to do box outline equals drawing dot new square with a comma at the end. So basically, this will make a box drawing for each player that is called with this function. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a line at the end that when a new player is added, we're going to call this function, and it's going to create a box and a box outline for that player. Now we're going to make a function called local updates ESP equals function with no parameters. We're going to do end. Then we're going to create our run service loop. So we're going to do ESP connection equals run service dot render stepped : connect function end. Boom. Alright, now that we have our ESP connection, we're going to define the player's character, not our local player's character, but the player that we're drawing on. So we're going to do local character equals player dot character. Then we're going to do if character, then else end. Now we're going to define the humanoid root part. So we're going to do local humanoid root part equals character : weight, or find first child humanoid root part. Boom. Now we're going to make sure that the humanoid root part is valid. So we're going to do if humanoid root part, then we're going to do else end. Alright, now we're going to get the on-screen position of the player. So we're going to do local position, on screen. Now, why we're doing position, on screen is because the function we're going to use returns two parameters. It returns the 2D position of the player on the screen, and it returns if the player is on screen or not. So we need to define two variables. So now we're going to do camera : world to viewport point. So basically this gets the player's 3D position and it converts it to a 2D position on your screen so we can draw on them. So now we're going to provide a 3D position. So we're going to do the humanoid root part .position. Boom. Now we're going to make sure that this player is on screen because we don't want to be drawing our boxes if they're not on screen. So we're going to do if on screen, then else end. All right. Now we're going to need some math. It's very, honestly, I don't really understand it that well, but I'm just going to copy this over from a previous script. I will provide this. This will be in the comment section. This basically makes sure that the boxes fit the player at any distance and at any sizing. So you don't really have to understand this. I don't really understand it, so we're just going to move on. So now we're going to position, size, and color our box. So we're going to do drawings.box.size, I can't spell, .size equals vector2.new, and we're going to do width and height. Now we're going to do drawings.box.position equals vector2.new, xPosition and yPosition. Next, we're going to actually set the box to be visible, so we're going to do drawings.box.visible equals true. And then we're going to define a color. You can do whatever color. I'm just going to do white, so we're going to do drawings.box.color equals color3.from RGB. And we're going to do, for white, it's 255. RGB, red, green, blue, you know what that means. So next we're going to define the thickness. So we're going to do drawings.box.thickness. Now this can be whatever you want. I usually just do 1 because it looks the best in my opinion. So next we're going to define our outlines. So instead of typing all this out again, we're just going to copy this, put it down here, copy our box outline name, and just replace all of these names here. Only thing we're changing is the thickness to 2 and the color to a black outline or whatever outline color you want. And next we have to set the Z index, which is basically which drawing is in front, which drawing is behind. This is usually used in screen GUIs, but it's also used in drawings. So we're going to do drawings.boxoutline.zindex equals 1, and then drawings, oh my gosh, I cannot spell, drawings.box.zindex equals 2. So basically this will make the box, the regular one, not the outline one, draw in front because it has less thickness. So if we draw the outline in front, then you won't be able to see the white and it will just look weird. So next we're going to hide our boxes if they're not on screen, if the humanoid root part isn't valid, or if the character isn't valid. So we're just going to do drawings.box.visible equals false. And we'll do drawings.boxoutline.visible equals false. We're just going to copy this, put this down here, and fix the spacing because Visual Studio sucks. And then we're going to actually update our ESP. So we're going to go at the bottom and we're going to do quarantine.wrap. We're going to do update ESP with a open brackets at the end. So next we're going to create our actual update loop, which will add new players to the ESP and add all the current players when you first join to the ESP. So we're going to do the first one first. So we're going to do for_v in pairs player service :get players with a function call. Then we're going to do not add drop down, do end. So next we're going to do if v.name is not equal to local player.name. So basically, so we don't draw on ourselves. It's basically just a check to make sure that their name isn't our name. Easy check. So now we're going to do quarantine.wrap again. So you can actually just copy this right here, put this here, and change this to ESP and add our v parameter here. This is the player parameter that is right here. So next we're going to do our player service player added function here. So we're going to do player service dot player added :connect function, and then we're going to do v so we can actually get the player that is being added to the game. Then we're going to do task.delay. This is basically just an optimization. You don't really need to add this, but I do this for all of my ESPs. So we're gonna do quarantine. We're actually gonna copy this and just put this right here as it is, this exact same. So let's go over and review what this code does. So we define our variables up here, then we define our ESP function with our player parameter. We define our ESP connection for our run service loop. We define our drawings so that we can use them later. We define an update ESP function. We check for the character, check for the humanoid root part, check for if they're on screen. Then we do some math to calculate their position, and then we do our drawing and sizing position, visible, etc. Then we hide our drawings if they're not on screen, if the humanoid root part isn't valid, or if the character isn't valid. Then we wrap our update ESP. We create our functions for all the players in the game that are currently in the game, and then we add a check for when players are added, and we add them to the ESP. So this looks completed. We're going to hop in game and test this. Okay, I'm in game now. I'm injected, so we're just going to go ahead and execute this code. And we're going to see if we're getting errors. Yes, we are getting an error, so we're going to go debug this. So line 22. Now you're always going to get errors. You're never going to be perfect every time. That is why. Okay, I did a capital P. It is a lowercase p. So make sure to change that. Now let's retest this. Okay, now with the fixed error, boom. As you can see, we are drawing our boxes. Boom, as you can see, they have an outline. They're perfectly fit to the character, and they size depending on the distance. Boom. Now, this system here is very easy to add stuff, as we already have all of our sizing done, and we basically just need to add drawing elements. It's really easy, but thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all of you guys, and in the next tutorial we will be adding health bars. So yeah, looking forward to seeing you guys next time. Peace out.